Welcome back to the Business Ignite podcast, where we light the fire for business growth and marketing success. Your hosts, Ethan Walker and Samantha Reed, bring you the latest trends, expert insights, and actionable strategies to fuel your business journey. Let's ignite your potential.
Okay, so have you ever needed a new website?
Mm-hmm.
And you go to Google it, right? You're like, all right, web design agency, hit enter.
Oh.
And it's like a million things come at you, and you just immediately want to crawl back into whatever hole you came from.
Yeah, it's a lot, right?
Yeah.
It can feel overwhelming for sure.
Totally. So we're doing a deep dive today to help make it less overwhelming. There's an article, it's by 95 Visual, and it's called Choosing the Right Web Design Agency.
Important stuff.
Super important. We want you to avoid getting eaten alive out there.
Because it really is a jungle.
Mm-hmm.
And just because an agency has a killer portfolio, it doesn't mean they're the right fit.
Right. It's like you need more than just a pretty face. In dating, someone might dress really well to impress you, but, you have to dig a little deeper to see if they're, relationship material.
Yeah, for the long haul.
Exactly. And speaking of digging deeper, the article starts off strong, talking about experience.
Right. And it makes sense, right?
I
mean, ideally, an experienced agency has a broader range of, skills. Maybe they've tackled a bunch of different kinds of challenges.
Right.
But the article makes this point, and it's so funny. Check out their website.
Oh,
right.
That's such a good point.
Because if their website is a mess...
It's like a chef with a dirty kitchen.
Exactly. How are you going to trust them to make you this incredible 5-course meal when they can't even, keep their own house in order?
100%. So experience matters, but a little peek behind the curtain is important too.
Totally.
What else should we be looking for?
So testimonials and references are your best friends here. But don't just take them at face value. Ask really specific questions.
Okay.
Really specific.
What kind of stuff?
So don't just ask, hey, have you worked with businesses in my industry? Dig deeper. Find out how they've tackled challenges that are specific to you, to your business, to your industry.
This reminds me of a time, and this is why this is so important. I went with a designer once, solely based on their portfolio. It was beautiful, aesthetically, it was stunning,
Right.
but they totally missed the mark when it came to, my brand. They weren't thinking about, who my target audience was.
Yeah.
It was like they were just designing in a vacuum, and it totally flopped.
Interesting.
And, I learned a really valuable lesson, A pretty website is meaningless if it's not, talking to the right people.
Right, exactly, because it's not just about checking boxes.
Right.
You need someone who gets your vision, your audience,
right,
who can adapt.
Totally.
And that brings us to a huge, huge red flag that the article talks about. And I want to make sure that we hit on this.
Okay, yeah, this is a big one. If you're listening, take note. Be very wary of any agency that throws a price at you before even, having a conversation.
Yes, before they've even taken the time to understand your needs, your goals, what you want to accomplish. Every business is different. Why would your website be any different? It feels very cookie cutter, and those solutions almost never work long term.
It's like going to a tailor and them saying, okay, a suit's going to cost you $500 before they've even
taken any measurement.
Looked at you. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Speaking of things that should fit perfectly, let's talk SEO. It's a big one.
It is, right?
Yeah.
It's essential.
But it's also kind of mysterious, right? What does it even mean?
Well, think of it like this, okay? SEO is essentially how visible your website is. You could have the most amazing website, beautiful, everything, but
right,
if it's buried under a million Google search results.
Like a tree falling in the woods.
Exactly. It's it doesn't even exist. No one's going to find it.
So how do we make sure that doesn't happen? Because I feel I hear SEO optimization. Everyone's like, oh, yeah, you got to do that. But
right,
what does that even mean in practical terms?
So in a nutshell, SEO is this matchmaking service for your website. It's all about attracting visitors who are already out there looking for what you offer.
Okay, so it's not just about getting, tons of traffic.
Nope. It's about attracting the right kind of traffic.
The people who actually want what you're selling.
Exactly. Think about it. You wouldn't put, an ad for vegan cheese in a magazine for, barbecue enthusiasts, right?
Oh.
It's about targeting, finding your people.
So how do you do that with, a website?
Well, it's a whole bunch of things. And the article does a great job of breaking it down. It's not just about keywords, although those are important. It's also about the structure of your website,
Okay.
how easy it is to navigate, the quality of your content, making sure it's engaging, informative.
So people actually want to stick around.
Yeah, exactly. And then there are things like backlinks, having other websites link back to yours.
So it's like vouching for you.
Exactly. Like, hey, this website's legit. Check it out. All of that plays a role.
So it's like building a network, but for your website.
Exact.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. So we've talked about experience, SEO. The article also mentions something called workflow.
Ah,
Yes.
What is that?
Sounds kind of jargony, right?
It does.
But it's actually pretty simple. It's basically, how does this agency work? What's their process? Do they build websites from scratch, or are they using like pre-made templates? How do they handle updates, maintenance, security, all that important stuff?
Because it's not like you just,
Set it and forget it.
yeah, you don't just launch your website and then never think about it again.
Nope, it's an ongoing thing. And understanding an agency's workflow, it can give you a really good sense of how they approach that ongoing relationship,
Like, do they have a system for you to track progress? Can you give feedback easily? How does communication work? Those are things to think about.
Because you're going to be working with these people, hopefully, for a while.
Exactly. It's a partnership.
It's like the difference between, building a custom home
Right.
and buying one that's already prefabbed.
Yeah.
And, both are fine, but...
You got to know what you're getting into.
Exactly.
And speaking of user experience.
In user experience, it's a good segue because the article talks about this too. Like, how user-friendly is the back end of your website going to be?
Right, because what's the point of having this amazing website if you can't even update it yourself?
Yeah.
You don't want to have to call a developer every time you need to, like change a sentence.
Oh my God, I've been there. It's the worst. Trying to, navigate the back end of a website when you don't know what you're doing. It's
Nightmare.
total nightmare. Thankfully, I found an agency that made it all make sense, but yeah.
And that's really what you want, right? You want an agency that's going to empower you. You don't want them to hold your hand through every little thing forever. But they should give you the tools, the training, the support to be able to manage things on your own, at least the basics.
Totally. Okay, so to wrap up our little deep dive here, we've talked about a lot. We talked about experience, looking beyond the portfolio. Testimonials, references, super important. Don't be afraid to get granular there.
Don't just skim the surface.
Exactly. And that whole price quote thing, like run for the hills, huge red flag. SEO, we talked about that. Making sure your website is visible.
To the right people.
To the right people, exactly. Workflow, how the agency actually operates, and then user friendliness, because at the end of the day, it's your website. You got to be able to live with it.
And use it.
And use it, yeah.
And I think the biggest takeaway here is that choosing a web design agency, it's not just about a transaction, right? It's about a relationship.
It totally is. And just like any relationship, you want to make sure it's a good fit.
100%.
Awesome. Well, this was great. Thanks for walking us through all this. I feel like I learned a lot.
Me too. Yeah.
And hopefully everyone listening did too. We'll make sure to link to that article, by the way, in the show notes so you can check it out for yourself. It's really good. It's by 95 Visual. And that's it for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Business Ignite podcast, where we fuel your business growth and marketing success. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to rate and review us. It does help others find the show. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Business Ignite Podcast and share this episode with a friend. Keep the fire burning, and remember, your success is just one strategy away. Until next time, stay ignited.